And the number one thing I learned in the first 20 years of my life, spending more time with old people than most kids, is the biggest thing I fear is regret.
You rarely regret the things that you do. It's what you don't do that you regret the most.
In most cases, our biggest regrets turn out to be acts of omission. It's paths not taken, and they haunt us. We wonder what would have happened.
Rise and shine, it's Entspresso time.
I wake up every morning.
Espresso keep me going.
I wake up every morning.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something greater inside you too. You are a genius. So let's start your day off right together. Grab your coffee and sip on today's message from Gary Vaynerchuk. Also, if you want to have more confidence, check out my 254 series. They're free. The links to join are in the description below.
We are strong as shit. We're really strong. We're just being sold that we're not because there's a lot of money. The reason people aren't patient is they value other people's opinions too much. In a success world, please understand that success is happiness, not net dollars in. When I was a little kid in Edison, New Jersey, when grandparents came over, I would go play with the grandparents a lot. Maybe it was because I lost 3 of my 4 grandparents as a kid. And the #1 thing I learned in the first 20 years of my life, spending more time with old people than most kids, is the biggest thing I fear is regret. Regret is scary. Resentment is very scary. The biggest reason I push kids to do what they want versus what their parents want is because I'd rather them and their parents have 5 or 6 or 7 years of bad than 80. Because it gets very ugly when you're 60 and they're 80 and you lived your life based on what they wanted and now you resent them. It gets real ugly real fast. I would rather you have the pain for the next 5 or 6 years of fighting and then have one of 2 things happen, which I think both are amazing. #1, you were right. You were right, and you are an amazing fashion designer, not an engineer, and you built a real company, and your parents are gonna be very, very proud. Or, you were wrong. You suck at fashion design. Nobody liked it. But at least for yourself, you never have to live the rest of your life asking yourself, what if? You win both ways.
You rarely regret the things that you do. It's what you don't do that you regret the most. It's all the missed opportunities, the times you wanted to say yes but were afraid, the moments that you wanted to bet on yourself but you were scared. Those moments, that's what you want to minimize, because it's way better to know and to fail than to never know at all. So I look at my tour as an example. I started 2019 with a tour across 23 cities, 90 days, and it was a big adventure in not regretting my life. It started off as supposed to be a free tour out of coffee shops, and my agent pushed me and said, Evan, this is playing small. My agent, Steve in New York, said, Evan, you're playing small. This is small. This is small time, man. Doing these little free things at coffee shops is small time compared to what you're capable of. You need to charge for the event. You need to book hotel rooms. You need to charge for the event. You need to get people to come out. And the thought just of doing that was already making me scared because I'm afraid of disappointing people. When it's free, there's no risk, right? I can't disappoint anybody, it's free. But when they're paying to come out, I need to make sure that I deliver. I also thought maybe, what if nobody shows up, right? What if one person shows up? That's gonna be a massive disappointment. And so I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do it. But the thing that got me through was regret. I don't wanna look back. I don't wanna be 90 and look back and say, I should have done it. I was afraid to bet on myself. I would rather know and fail than not know. And so I did it. Took some convincing, took some time to digest it and eat it, but I said, I'm gonna do it, we'll do it. Then as I started on the tour, the first ones were scary, I was nervous, but then we developed a pattern, a rhythm. Every 4 days I was doing it and got it, and then it became easy. And so I needed to take another step. My next step was, I had an idea. I wanna do Q&A. My favorite part of doing workshops and meeting people is Q&A, because I don't wanna just get up and speak. I want to help. I want to give you practical, tactical advice that can help you in your current situation. I don't want to just get up in front of a room and say the same thing that I would say every time. And so I was even a little slow in starting this because I had this idea for 2 or 3 cities that I want to start doing it. And I would slowly experiment. And then I was on an Instagram live and somebody in Sacramento, which was maybe 4 stops ahead of where I was, said, hey, do it in Sacramento. Bring it to Sacramento. Be the first in Sacramento. And that one little piece of validation said, okay, you know what? I'm going to do it in Sacramento. But then it bothered me that I had to wait for validation to then go off and do it. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it in LA, which was my next stop. And so we had 100 people in LA in a hotel room. And I went pure Q&A. And it became the best. It was my favorite stop on the tour at that point. We had the best interaction, the most high fives, the biggest energy. Not everybody liked it. Some people came to LA as a second stop. They came somewhere else on the tour and then they came to LA and they said, I didn't like it as much. And others who came as a second stop said, this is the best format ever, right? You're not gonna please everybody all the time. But I loved it more. I had more energy and then I brought it to the rest of my tour. But I still was slow. I was thinking about it 2-3 stops prior and I didn't do it. I didn't have the courage to bet on myself. I was afraid that it wouldn't work out. And so every time I try to catch it a little bit sooner. Then it got easy doing Q&A and then I broke my neck in Denver. With a month left on the tour, I broke my neck in Denver and had a concussion and compressed my spine and staples in my head and all this stuff and thought, you know what, I'm gonna keep going. This is now my new chance because if I don't keep going, I'm gonna regret it. Other people would let me off the hook. Everybody around me saying, go home. My agent thought I was crazy. Go home, take care of yourself. And everybody would have let me off the hook. But I couldn't let myself off the hook. I had to at least see. I'd rather know and fail than not know. I'd rather try to do the next stops. And if it didn't work out, if I couldn't speak because I had a concussion or I was in too much pain to keep going, then I would pull back, but I would know. I would know. And the next stop was in Kansas City, and my wife had to pull me off after an hour and a half because I was done. Like physically, mentally, I was done. She had to yank me out and say, guys, it's over. And then I got up for the next one and I did the full 3.5 hours and I kept going. And I was proud of my effort, you know, and I look back like, yes, I'm proud because if I stopped and I went home, I would have regretted it my whole life. And so this tour became this massive life-changing moment for me in that first I was afraid to do it because I was afraid to charge. And then I was afraid to go and do pure Q&A, and then I was afraid to keep going because I injured myself and thought I wouldn't be able to provide value. And every chance along the way, stepping up and saying, I'm going to do it. And that's where you get the growth. Whatever the thing is in your life that you're afraid of potentially regretting, you have to go do that thing, otherwise you will regret it. So how do you do it? How do you stop living with regrets? I'm gonna give you a 3-step process that I think will help. Step number 1 is take the rocking chair test. The rocking chair test is imagine yourself at 90, 95, 100, however long you're gonna live. You're at the end of your life. You're in a rocking chair. It's over. It's done. You can barely remember things. You have dementia. Your body's frail. It's over. You're back, rocking away, sitting on the porch. Your life's about to be over. What are you gonna regret? What are you gonna regret that you didn't do? You didn't go do that tour. You didn't make that phone call. You didn't ask that person out. You didn't make that book deal happen. You didn't make that first video. You didn't do it. You stopped. You were afraid. Because when you're at the end of the life, it's all gonna seem trivial. The fears, like, what were you so afraid of? You're afraid of your mom's opinion? You're afraid of some hater on YouTube giving you a negative comment? You're afraid that the book doesn't sell? What are you so afraid of? When you're at the end of your life, those fears are gone. But the regret stays for decades. So what is that thing that you might regret not doing? And then use that pain to push you into action. Take the rocking chair test. Step number 2 is hangnail versus punch. And so when you have a hangnail, it hurts. I kind of have a little hangnail right here. It hurts. You know, if you pick at it, it hurts. It hurts. But then if somebody punches you in the arm, that should hurt. You don't feel this pain anymore because this hurts so much, right? If you've had that happen, you have a little pain and it bothers you, it's the end of the world, you got something stuck in your teeth, it bothers you, you can't get it out. But then if somebody punches you in the arm, you don't feel the thing in your tooth. You don't feel the hangnail anymore because this thing hurts even more. And so that's how I like to use regret. And you might think that's a little evil or masochistic, but it works. Because the thing that you're afraid of doing is real pain. I don't think you can be unafraid. I think if you're just saying be fearless, then you're only doing things that are in your comfort zone. It's easy to be fearless at things that that you're good at, you know how to do. You can be fearless in brushing your teeth. You're not afraid of that because you've done it so many times. But the first time you tried to brush your teeth or the first time you tried to tie your shoes, you were a little afraid that it wouldn't work out, that you'd make a mistake, right? What's the process? Now it's easy for you. Being fearless means you're in your comfort zone forever. I think the fear is real. So how do you get through it? You give yourself a bigger fear, a bigger pain, which is decades of regret, and bring it back to today. That forces you to take action because the future pain is now bigger than the current pain. And third, understand that your fear is not a failure. People aren't afraid of failure. You're afraid of failing in front of other people. You will sing in the shower, but you won't sing on the street corner. Why? Because you're afraid of judgment. You're afraid of how people will see you. You're afraid of what they're gonna say, especially if you suck at the beginning of your journey and you don't know what you're doing. And so understand that the biggest reason why you're not taking action is you're afraid of what other people are gonna think and judge of what you're doing. And just that little bit of awareness, just recognizing that I'm not actually afraid of failing. I'm afraid of failing in front of who? Who is that person? Is it your parents? Is it your spouse? Is it your boyfriend, girlfriend? Is it your kids? Is it your best friends? Is it anonymous people on the internet? Like, who are you actually afraid of? And if you can step it back and say, I'm only afraid of doing this because of how my parents are gonna see me or how my spouse is gonna see me or some anonymous troll on the internet, that's what I'm really afraid of. It can ease the burden because you're sitting there thinking, I'm afraid of failing, but you're actually not. You're just afraid of failing in front of that person. And so imagine who that person is, and then imagine failing in whatever the worst case scenario is. It's not that bad. It can give you the strength, confidence, and courage to go and take action. Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy, but before that, question of the day, I wanna know, what will you regret if you don't start acting on immediately? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video and you're gonna take some action instead of just watching another video, give me a hashtag believe down in the comments too.
How did you go through making the decision to drop what was a very good job and take this chance? It all seems very obvious now, right? This many years later that it paid off, but at the time it was not obvious.
No, it wasn't. And I did do a lot of soul searching. I went to my boss at the time, and I really liked my job. And I told my boss I was going to go do this thing, start an internet bookstore, and my wife I'd already told my wife, and she's like, great, let's go. And I said to my boss I was going to do this. He's like, this is a good idea. He said, I think this is a good idea, but it would be an even better idea for somebody who didn't already have a good job. And that sort of made some logical sense to me, and he convinced me to think about it for a couple of days, so I went away. And I was really trying to get my head around how to think about this. And I think, for me, the right way to make that kind of very personal decision, because those decisions are personal. They're not like data-driven business decisions. They are, what does your heart say? And for me, the best way to think about it was to project myself forward to age 80 and say, look, when I'm 80 years old, I want to have minimized the number of regrets that I have. I don't want to be 80 years old in a quiet moment of reflection, thinking back over my life and cataloging a bunch of major regrets. And I think that regrets, our biggest regrets, in most cases, you can murder somebody, okay, you'd regret that, but in most cases, our biggest regrets turn out to be acts of omission. It's paths not taken, and they haunt us. We wonder, what would have happened? I loved that person, and I never told them. And then they married somebody else. I didn't do this. And so that's the frame of mind that I put myself in. And once I did that, once I thought about it that way, it was immediately obvious to me. I knew that when I'm 80, I would never regret trying this thing that I was super excited about and it failing. If it failed, fine. I would be very proud of the fact when I'm 80 that I tried. And I also knew that it would always haunt me if I didn't try. And so that would be a regret. It would be a 100% chance of a regret if I didn't try, and basically a 0% chance of regret if I tried and failed. So I think that's a useful metric for any important life decision.
If you want Gary's advice on how to do what you love, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I was not capable of being a student because of my deep passion for entrepreneurship.